I didn't ask to plan the wedding. I just offered to help. You know, small things, flowers, cake deposit, maybe the table linens if they got pricey. But of course, when Tyrone told Sierra I'd offered to help, she heard cover most of it. And I did. Quietly. Like always. It started with the venue. Sierra fell in love with a place called Langston Hill, the kind of converted barn that photographs well with string lights and mason jars. I smiled when she showed me the pictures, even though I'd been in that building long before it became a wedding factory. My old friend Ray used to own it back when it was a feed supply warehouse. After he passed, I bought it off his daughter for pennies. Cleaned it up. Rented it out for small events. I never changed the name. Let them think Langston Hill was some brand and not just Ray Langston's old workshop with new paint. So when Sierra said it was her dream venue, I didn't say a word. I just made a call. Booked it. Paid in full. Never told her I owned it. No need to stir, I told myself. Let them have their day. I paid for the catering deposit too. And the floral down payment. The DJ was through my niece's son, so I got a discount there, but still covered his booking fee. Every time Sierra sent an invoice to Tyrone, he forwarded it to me. And every time I paid it. I didn't do it for gratitude. God knows I gave up on that years ago. I did it because I wanted to see my son happy. I raised that boy by myself after his father walked out. I scrubbed cafeteria trays until my knuckles cracked so he could wear clean uniforms and graduate without debt. If paying for his wedding gave him one day where he didn't have to worry about money, I figured it was worth it. But Sierra didn't like me. She never said it outright, but I could see it. The way she flinched when I spoke too loud. The way she corrected me when I said reception, instead of celebration dinner. The way she once said, we want a modern vibe, not a soul food supper. I didn't argue. I just stopped offering menu ideas. The day of the wedding I wore beige. Like she asked. No red, no sequins, nothing too loud, she texted me 2 weeks before. The palette is neutral. I looked like a table napkin in that dress, but I wore it. For Tyrone. When I arrived at the venue, Langston Hill, the place I owned, I smiled at the valet. He didn't recognize me, of course. Most of the staff didn't. That was the point. I handed him my keys, took a deep breath and walked toward the doors. Inside everything looked beautiful. I'll give Sierra credit for that. The lights were warm, the florals understated, and the music just loud enough to cover small talk. I nodded at a few distant relatives, smiled at strangers, and headed toward the seating chart near the entrance. I scanned the list once. Twice. No, Dorothy Holloway. I thought maybe they used mother of the groom, but no. I checked every name tag on every table. I wasn't listed. I turned to a young server carrying a tray of champagne. Excuse me, baby, I said gently. I can't seem to find my seat. He looked startled. Oh, they told me you'd be in the side room. Out back. My stomach dropped. The what? The garage. It's been decorated. I think. He shifted, uncomfortable. They said it was to keep things orderly. He led me there. Past the reception hall, through a narrow corridor and into what used to be Ray's storage unit. There were folding chairs. A small folding table with one pitcher of water. A stack of Costco brand cookies. A floral arrangement, wilted hydrangeas, sat crooked in a chipped vase. I stood there staring. The garage smelled like cleaning fluid and hot dust. One of the bulbs flickered overhead. I sat down. Fully. No one else was in the room. From the wall, I could hear the muffled voice of the DJ announcing the wedding party. I pulled a tissue from my clutch and dabbed the corner of my eye. I didn't cry because I was surprised. I cried because I wasn't. I had known from the moment Sierra insisted on handling the guest list herself. From the moment she said, we only have so many seats, but don't worry, you'll be close. I'd known. I just didn't want to believe my own son would let it happen. The music swelled. Applause echoed through the wall. Then laughter. I looked around that garage, my garage, and exhaled. They thought I was small. They forgot whose name was on the deed. I reached into my purse and pulled out the little brass key that had been on my ring for 20 years. It gleamed under the dim flickering light. I tucked it in my palm, smoothed my skirt and sat back. I wasn't going to ruin their moment. Not yet. But when they tried to dance through the night, they were going to learn exactly who they sat next to a mop bucket. I stayed seated in that garage for the better part of an hour. At some point, someone brought me a bottle of water and an unopened pack of crackers. They didn't speak, just set it down and walked away. I looked at the crackers, then laughed to myself, quiet, bitter. That was their idea of hospitality. A woman funds half the wedding and they feed her like a stray cat on the back porch? The music pulsed through the wall. The DJ was doing his best to get the crowd hyped, calling names, playing all the usual radio hits. I knew the order of things by heart. First the introductions, then the toasts, then the family portraits. I'd memorized that sequence from decades of working catering jobs. I knew what was coming next. I sat still listening. It wasn't long before I heard them call out names for the formal wedding photos. And now let's get the family of the groom up here. I didn't move. The door creaked open behind me. Maya stepped in looking nervous. My granddaughter. Tyrone's child from before Sierra, back when he had sense. She was in her early 20s now, studying business at Clark. Smart girl. Too observant for her own good. Grandma, she said gently. They're taking pictures. Did you know they didn't call you? I just looked at her. She winced. Sierra said it was a timing thing, that you'd get a solo shot later. But I know that's not true. I reached out and patted her hand. Don't worry about me, baby. Let them have their pictures. Maya sat down beside me and looked around the garage, disgust written all over her face. This is where they sat you? Apparently. Mom would have flipped a table if anyone tried this with Nana. I nodded. That's because your mom knew who she was dealing with. Sierra thinks she married up. But the table she's sitting at? I built it. Maya's eyes flicked to the key in my hand. What's that? I held it up between two fingers. The original. He smiled a little. You own this place, don't you? I didn't answer. I figured. No one who wipes floors as carefully as you do forgets where the foundation lies. I chuckled, but my chest ached. You know what hurts, Maya? It's not just that they disrespected me. It's that Tyrone let them. My own son. I didn't need a pedestal. I didn't even need a front row seat. But I damn sure didn't expect to be hidden behind a mop sink like some shameful secret. Maya's mouth tightened. You gonna do something? I looked her square in the eye. Not yet. She nodded. Okay. And then she left. Smart girl. I waited. Time passed. I knew the DJ's playlist down to the transitions. Around 7 p.m. I heard the volume dip and someone clinked a glass for attention. Ladies and gentlemen, the toasts are about to begin. Right on schedule. I stood slowly, smoothed my dress and walked toward the main hall. I didn't go in. I stood near the side entrance just outside the French doors looking through the glass. There they were. Tyrone and Sierra, seated at the long sweetheart table. Gold accents. Overhead greenery. Sierra looked like royalty. Her mother was leaning in close, laughing too loudly. Tyrone was smiling, nodding, sipping wine. They didn't look around for me. Not once. A cousin I barely recognized stood and gave a toast. Something about love, perseverance, and blended families. People clapped. The DJ queued up Luther Vandross and the first dance began. I watched from the side as Tyrone led Sierra onto the floor. That's when I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to my saved contacts and called Mr. Benton, the real estate broker I'd been working with for the past year. It's Dorothy, I said plainly. Go ahead with the finalization. You sure? They're dancing now. He didn't ask for clarification. We had everything set up already. Paperwork signed, payment scheduled, buyer ready. I had agreed to delay the closing until after the wedding out of courtesy. But courtesy expired with that folding chair in the garage. It'll be official within the hour, he said. I'll text you when the title office confirms. I hung up and slipped the phone back into my clutch. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel sad anymore. I felt clear. Let them dance. Let them raise glasses and post Instagram stories and toast to forever. Let them soak up every second of their stolen fantasy. Because when the lights came back on, they were going to learn the hard way. I wasn't a guest in their fantasy. They were trespassers in mine. And I had the paperwork to prove it. The hour passed like a countdown in my bones. I stood near the corner of the reception hall, invisible to everyone who didn't know where to look. The music played on. Couples twirled. Laughter rose like smoke from expensive cigars, and champagne glasses clinked over vanilla promises no one meant to keep. I kept my purse close, one hand gripping the fabric like it held my last nerve. But I wasn't angry anymore. That left me the moment I hit send on that call to Mr. Benton. That I felt cold, steady, like I'd just stepped out of fire and into ice water. Everything slowed down. The chandeliers sparkled like cheap stars. The rented flower centerpieces, all white peonies and fake eucalyptus, looked like plastic now. The whole thing felt staged, like I was watching a scene from a play I funded but was never cast in. I moved quietly along the edge of the room. No one noticed. They weren't looking for me, why would they? I wasn't invited to the photo line, I wasn't in the program, and apparently, I wasn't even meant to be seated where the living had light. But I didn't come for their validation. I came for the timing. Right around 8:40 I saw him, Victor, the venue manager I'd hired myself years ago, back when Langston Hill was just a rental shell I was trying to revive. He was standing near the back hallway holding a clipboard and looking around like he was waiting for a signal. I gave him a slow nod. He blinked once, tucked the clipboard under his arm and disappeared down the corridor. That was the cue. I made my way outside, the night finally beginning to cool down. Cicadas were chirping in the trees, and you could hear the buzz of summer holding on for dear life. I took a seat at one of the empty patio tables far from the dance floor and waited. It didn't take long. Inside, the DJ made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, can I get your attention please? We're now moving to the cake cutting and reception closing speech from the couple." I sipped my water slowly, feeling the chill spread from the bottom of the glass to my chest. Then the murmur began. Small at first. A few confused glances near the restrooms. Someone trying a door handle that wouldn't turn. Another guest calling over a server, whispering, "Why is the drink station shut down? Bathrooms locked. I think the bar's packing up." I saw Sierra from the window. Her smile dropped just slightly. Just enough. She stood up and walked toward Victor, who'd reappeared by the side doors. "I need to speak with you," she said, her voice fake calm but sharp around the edges. Victor smiled politely and stepped outside with her, directly into my line of sight. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, hands folded behind his back. "There's been a transfer. Legal turnover finalized 15 minutes ago. Property ownership has changed. We're closing down the event per Clause 14B of the rental agreement." I nearly smiled at the way her expression fell apart. "What the hell are you talking about?" she snapped. Victor didn't flinch. Clause 14B allows immediate transfer response in case of property sale. And since the original owner sold the venue as of this evening. Who sold it? Victor turned and pointed at me. She did. Sierra spun and our eyes met. I stayed seated, one leg crossed over the other, calm as a lake in winter. Tyrone came rushing out behind her, confused. "What's going on?" Sierra nearly screamed. "Your mother just sold the damn venue." He looked at me like I'd grown horns. "Ma." I set my water glass down, stood slowly and adjusted my purse strap. "You sat me in the garage," I said evenly. "Behind the mop bucket. In the building I've owned since 2004. The silence hit like a slap. Sierra's mother came barreling out next, already dialing someone on her phone. Victor calmly informed her that legal enforcement would begin shortly if the building wasn't vacated. He handed her a printed document, signed, stamped, and filed. People began pouring out the doors behind them, murmuring, confused, a few filming on their phones already. "I told y'all I paid for the venue," I said loud enough for everyone to hear. "I just never said I owned it." Tyrone opened his mouth, but no words came out. Maya was standing near the back, arms folded, eyes locked on me like I was the final piece of a puzzle that finally made sense. The DJ's speakers cut off mid-song. One of the bartenders wheeled a cart down the path, muttering about the end of his shift. Chairs were being stacked. A child started crying. Sierra turned back to me, mouth shaking. "You ruined our wedding." I gave her the smallest smile I could manage without letting my teeth show. "No," I said softly. "You ruined the invitation. The wedding was just the invoice." And I walked right past her, down the path I paid for, in heels they told me not to wear, across bricks I'd chosen myself, in a building they tried to erase me from. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. They were standing in a dream they never owned. And I just took the walls down. I walked down that pathway like it was a runway made for me and me alone. I could hear my heels clicking against the stone, slow and steady. Behind me, voices rose in a panic. Sierra yelling, Tyrone stammering, chairs scraping, someone knocking on a locked bathroom door like it owed them an explanation. I didn't turn around. The humid night pressed in on my skin, but I felt light. Lighter than I'd felt in years. Like I had just unloaded the weight of being invisible, dismissed, and tolerated. All those years of biting my tongue at dinner tables I bought. All those Sunday school speeches about humility while folks wrote me out of my own legacy. Gone. Just like the access to that reception hall. As I reached the end of the gravel path, Victor caught up to me. He was out of breath, holding a set of keys in a folder. It's done, he said. Buyer signed electronically. Deposit cleared. Title company will follow up next week. Good, I said. I took the folder and slipped it into my purse like it was a dinner receipt. He hesitated. Are you okay? I looked at him. A man who'd worked for me for 10 years, watched me clean windows and cut costs when business was thin. A man who'd never once treated me like anything less than the owner, even when guests assumed otherwise. I'm more than okay, I told him. I'm free. I watched him walk back toward the building, shoulders squared. Inside, the DJ had gone quiet. People were filing out like ants from a flooded hill, confused, overdressed, holding their heels in one hand and their dignity in the other. I took a seat on one of the wooden benches near the rose bushes. The summer air buzzed with crickets, and in the distance someone was yelling about a refund. Maya appeared a few minutes later, calm, composed, holding 2 slices of cake on paper plates. Figured you didn't get one, she said, handing one to me. I didn't, I said, but I got the building. We both laughed, quiet and sharp. She sat down beside me and looked toward the crowd gathering at the front of the venue. Some guests were calling Ubers. Others were standing around with confused looks and plastic cups full of flat champagne. Everyone's saying this is going to go viral, Maya said. Someone already posted a clip of Sierra screaming in front of the dance floor. Caption says, "Bride kicked out by landlord, who's also the groom's mom." I took a bite of cake. It was too sweet with that fake almond extract aftertaste that tries too hard to be elegant. I hope they get the lighting right, I said. This side of the property photographs better. Maya grinned. You're evil. No, I corrected. I'm observant. And exhausted. We sat in silence for a while. Then I asked the question I'd been holding in my chest since the day Tyrone said, "She's just different, Ma. You gotta get used to how she does things." Do you think he really didn't know? Maya shrugged, picking at her cake. He knew. But he let her run the show. He wanted peace more than he wanted respect. That hit like a cold splash of water even though I knew it was true. That's what hurts most, I said. Not that she tried me, but that he let her. You taught him grace, Maya said. But Sierra taught him silence. That sat heavy in the space between us. By now the parking lot was half empty. Guests were walking in confused circles, trying to figure out if the event was truly over or just on pause. A few were still clinging to centerpieces like they might be parting gifts. The venue staff were rolling carts out one by one, their movements smooth and rehearsed. I saw Tyrone standing alone near the fountain, his jacket off, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked like a man who'd been spun in a dryer and hung out to dry in the wrong zip code. He saw me but didn't come over. Just stood there watching me. I didn't wave. You don't wave to someone who watched you get pushed into a garage and said nothing. A few minutes later, Sierra marched out with her heels in her hand and her makeup streaked. She shouted something at a staff member, then kicked one of the flower arrangements off its pedestal. The bouquet scattered across the sidewalk like it knew it had served the wrong queen. Victor appeared again, cool as ever. I asked security to clear the property within 15 minutes, he said. New owner doesn't want footage showing late-night trespassing. I nodded. That's fair. Maya checked her phone. The clip just hit 500,000 views. One of the top comments says, "That's not a mother-in-law, that's a seal." I laughed harder than I expected to. The sound of it echoed off the empty courtyard. Cathartic. Raw. You know, I said, finishing my cake, I thought I'd feel guilt. Or maybe regret. Do you? No. I feel like I just repossessed my own damn name. Maya stood and reached out her hand. Come on, Grandma. Let's go home. This wedding's over. I took her hand, stood tall, and walked down that gravel path one last time, not as a guest, not as the groom's mother, not as someone who was asked to blend in. I walked as the woman who built the foundation they danced on, and made sure they'd never forget whose name was under their feet. The next morning was quiet. No calls. No apologies. No messages from my son. Just the soft hum of my ceiling fan and the faint scent of lavender from the linen spray I use every night. You'd think after what happened my phone would be blowing up. But silence. Silence is what people use when they think they can outweigh your dignity. I made myself a cup of chicory coffee and sat by the window. Something in me. I had been buried under politeness for so long that I forgot what it felt like to stand upright without explanation. For years I thought being quiet was the same thing as being wise. But quiet never stopped people from writing you out of your own story. It just made it easier for them to pretend you weren't there to begin with. I sipped my coffee and opened my tablet. The first thing I saw was a screenshot of Sierra, mid-scream, her mouth wide, her arms flailing like a puppet caught in its own strings. The caption, "Bride evicted by groom's mom during reception, and it was legal." 3 million views. And climbing. I tapped the comments. Most were strangers laughing or gasping. A few were trying to guess the location. Some were saying I was savage. Others called me queen behavior. But the ones that hit hardest were from women my age. One read, "They think we won't do it. But they forget we already survived worse." Another, "She did what every grandmother wanted to do but never had the deed." I didn't reply. Just bookmarked the page and closed the app. Around noon there was a knock at the door. It was Tyrone. He looked exhausted. Suit wrinkled, tie gone, eyes bloodshot. My boy. My grown man boy. Still handsome, still soft in the face when he was nervous. He didn't bring Sierra. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside and pointed toward the couch. He sat down like his legs didn't trust the floor. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. He looked at the framed photo of him on my shelf. 8 years old, missing a front tooth, smiling like he just won the lottery. "I didn't know they sat you in the garage," he said. I raised my brow. "I didn't," he insisted. "I thought you were at table 4 with Aunt V and Uncle Charles. That's what the chart said." I said nothing. "I didn't check when I got there," he admitted. "Sierra handled the logistics. You saw me after the ceremony. Did you come check on me?" His face fell. "No. You saw me when the photos were taken. Did you ask where I was?" He swallowed. "No." "And during the toast? When every other elder stood up and clapped?" He looked down. "No, Ma." I leaned forward. "That's what hurts, Tyrone. Not Sierra. Not the chair in the garage. You didn't look for me. You didn't defend me. You didn't even notice I was gone." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "That venue, the one you and your wife pretended I just booked like some favor." I continued. "I bought that land with my first year of retirement. I laid the tile. I negotiated the permits. I scrubbed that kitchen with bleach and tears. And the night you married that woman, you let her erase me." He started to cry. Not sobbing, just quiet tears like something finally cracked and he couldn't glue it fast enough. "I was trying to keep the peace," he said. "There is no peace without respect," I said. "You kept her comfort and lost my trust." He nodded slowly, wiping his eyes. "I'm sorry." I stood and walked to my cabinet, pulled out a small folder and handed it to him. Inside were copies of every receipt I paid for his wedding. Venue, catering, the florals, decorations, all in my name. "I don't need reimbursement," I said. "But I do want the record clear." He flipped through the papers, his hands shaking. "You raced me better than this," he whispered. "I did," I replied. Then I took out another envelope, this one thicker, and handed it to him. He opened it slowly. His eyes scanned the first page, then widened. "You're taking me out of the will?" he said. "I'm not removing you," I clarified. "I'm reallocating. You'll still receive part of my savings. But the house, the property, the business assets." He looked up. "They're going to Maya," I said. "She saw me. She sat with me. She didn't flinch when I held the key." He nodded slowly, his face unreadable. I understand. I leaned back. Do you? He didn't answer. We sat in silence again. This time I didn't break it. After a while he stood. Can I still visit? He asked. This is your home, I said. But don't expect to leave the same man when you walk out. He gave me a small, sad smile. I already haven't. Then he left. I stood at the window and watched him walk to his car. That's the thing about revenge. People think it's loud, dramatic, explosive. But the best revenge is quiet. It happens on paper, in wills, in signatures, in the way people start using your name again, but now with reverence. It's the shift in tone when they realize the person they dismissed owns the land they're standing on. And once that shift happens, you don't have to say a word. A month passed. No one dared say my name without caution now. The same aunties who used to whisper, "She always thinks she knows best," were suddenly calling me Miss Holloway, with full respect in their voice. Church folk who used to overlook me on Sundays made sure to stop by my pew to say good morning. I didn't need their validation, but I saw what they were doing. And I let them. The clip of the wedding eviction had passed 10 million views. 10 million. Someone added dramatic music to it and turned it into a meme. Another user edited it into a mock movie trailer titled, "The Matriarch's Last Stand." It was all over Black Twitter. Even the radio station downtown brought it up during their Family Feud Fridays. They didn't say my name, but they called me that grandma. The one who checked everyone without raising her voice. That was fine by me. The venue sale had gone through smoothly. The new owner was a sweet woman from Savannah who wanted to turn it into a wellness retreat. She called me twice just to thank me for how well I'd maintained the place. I wished her all the best and meant it. As for Tyrone and Sierra, well, let's just say not all things make it past the honeymoon stage. I didn't hear much from them after that visit. I didn't ask. Tyrone sent a card on my birthday. No gift, just his name scribbled beneath a pre-printed "with love." I kept it not because it meant anything but because I wanted the reminder. Some things you forgive. Others you simply remember. But Maya came over every Sunday after church. She'd bring groceries, clean out my gutters, even helped me reorganize my old photo albums. She sat with me on the porch while I drank sweet tea and reminded me that my story wasn't over just because I got quiet again. One afternoon she pulled out her laptop and said, "Grandma, I've been working on something." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh." She turned the screen toward me. It was a draft for a nonprofit. A foundation. Logo and everything. The Dorothy Holloway Foundation for Displaced Matriarchs. Too many women get erased from their own families, Maya said. We can't fix them all, but we can make sure their stories aren't lost. I blinked hard, swallowed. You really think people would support something like that? I asked. Grandma, she said, you broke the internet for doing what half the world only dreams of. And you didn't just throw a fit. You used a deed. You turned silence into structure. I shook my head, laughing through a tight throat. She opened her notebook. We can start small. Maybe a monthly support circle. Later we build into legal clinics, inheritance workshops, housing assistance. I leaned back in my chair, looked up at the ceiling like I was asking God for permission. And then I nodded. All right, I said. Let's do it. We filed the paperwork 2 weeks later. I donated part of the wedding reimbursement. Yes, Sierra's parents finally sent me a check after the venue went viral and their family started losing business contacts. It didn't cover everything, but it paid for our website domain, some flyers, and the first month of rent for a meeting space over on Edgewood Avenue. Our first meeting had 5 women. The next had 15. By the third month we had over 60. Each woman came with her own story, some quiet, some tearful, some mad enough to shake the walls. One woman said her son's wife told her not to wear perfume because it triggered her migraines. Another said she wasn't invited to her grandbaby's birth because she wasn't technologically aligned enough to be in the group chat. I didn't give advice. I just listened. And then when they finished, I handed them a copy of their own rights as elders, homeowners, mothers, sisters. I told them what I learned. That silence is not respect. That humility is not invisibility. That you can be kind and still own the ground under someone's feet. And when they looked at me, they didn't see someone too loud, or too old, or too country. They saw a woman who had been pushed into a garage and came out with the deed to the whole damn house. Now every time I walk into a room, I don't worry about whether there's a seat at the table. I know I built it. From wood they ignored. With blueprints they never asked for. Using tools they said I didn't know how to hold. Let them say what they want. Because when the music stops and the bills are due and the lights flicker, they'll remember one thing. It was never their house. It was always mine.